Hello and welcome to another History Burst video. This one's going to look at the League of Nations, its formation and how the kind of organisation worked. So, the formation of the League of Nations was one of Wilson's 14 points, and its aims were to get countries to collaborate to prevent war, known as collective security, encouraging disarmament, improving and living working conditions, tackling deadly diseases. The basic idea of how the League of Nations would work was included in the Treaty of Versailles, and all those countries that signed the treaty agreed then to follow those rules. And after the dreadful losses of the First World War, international leaders wanted a way to work together to solve problems without having to go to war. And the League of Nations was intended to encourage compromise and negotiation. So, the League was written into each of the treaties signed at the end of the war, and that was designed to make people recognise and respect the League. And at first, only 42 countries joined, and countries who had lost the war, such as Germany, were not allowed to join, and nor was Russia, as it was a communist state. They refused to join. Membership of the League did change, with Germany joining the League after the Locarno Treaties in 1925, so they finally joined in 1936. Russia was allowed to join in 1934, by which point there were 58 member states, and Britain felt that the League's actions were quite limited, whilst France were hoping the League would keep them safe from Germany. The League, it would deal with aggression through covenant, which included education, moral condemnation, money or economic sanctions, and military force. These are the four M's. It included many powerful countries, so these sanctions could be quite intimidating. However, as the League didn't have its own army, it relied on members to provide support. So how was the League structured? A key part of the League was the Assembly. And this was an international parliament that had a representative from every single country that was a member. And they would meet once a year and they would vote on issues, but the decision had to be unanimous. And they made decisions about membership of the League, membership of the Council, how the League should spend its money, and appointed the judges to the Court of International Justice. And every country had an equal vote in those. You also had the Council, and this met more frequently than the Assembly. There were 4 permanent members, which were Britain, France, Italy and Japan, plus 4 other countries which were voted to join for each 3 years. And they could veto rulings made by the Assembly. Now that increased, the temporary members increased to 9 members. You also had the Permanent Court of International Justice, and this was an international court of law that could give hearings and advise the parties involved in an argument. But again, these rulings were not compulsory, so they could be ignored. And the Secretariat, they were in charge of administration. They were kind of like the civil service. They ran the administration of the League and organised any non-military action that the League decided to take. And all of these fed into special commissions. And these were special groups set up to deal with major international issues. And these included things such as the International Labour Organization on Workers' Rights, Health Organization, the Disarmament Commission, Slavery Commission, which was designed to tackle human trafficking, the Commission for Refugees, the Central Opium Board, as opium addiction was a big problem, the Commission for Undeveloped Nations, the Commission for Women, Mandates Commission, and the Commission for Minorities. The League of Nations wanted to improve people's lives because it thought that if people were happy, the risk of conflict would be lower. And it set up agencies to work to achieve them, such as the International Labour Organization, where we can see the aims, we can see its successes, we can see its failures. So it was able to reduce the death rate of workers on the Tanganyika Railway, and they reduced that from 50% to just 4%. However, there were limitations, such as in 1919, most members refused to stop children under the age of 14 from working, as they deemed it too expensive, and they failed to limit the working day to 8 hours. The Organisation for Communication and Transport, they were aiming to improve how countries work together, and they were able to introduce shipping lanes and an international highway code. The Economic and Financial Committee wanted to improve living conditions, and they sent financial advisors to Austria and Hungary to rebuild the economies when they went bankrupt in 1921. However, they could not cope with the global depression that occurred in 1929. The Health Organization wanted to cure disease, and they were able to do things such as sending doctors to refugee camps, an international campaign to kill mosquitoes to stop malaria and yellow fever, and also help the Russian government organise an education program to stop the spread of typhus. We've also got the Commission for Refugees, and this aimed to help people who had lost their homes because of war, improve refugee camps to help people return home and find new homes. And they were successful because they freed 427,000 of the 500,000 prisoners of war still being held after World War I and returned them home. They introduced ID documents for refugees, resettled 1.5 million refugees from Russia. They set up refugee camps during the war between Greece and Turkey. They resettled 600,000 Greek refugees from Turkey. However, in the 1930s, they failed to help the Jews fleeing Nazi Germany. The Slavery Commission was obviously designed to end slavery. They were successful in that they helped to abolish slavery in Sierra Leone in 1928, where they set free 200,000 slaves. And then we've got the Permanent Central Opium Board, which were trying to tackle the trade of illegal drugs. They were able to blacklist several large companies that were selling drugs illegally, and they introduced a system of certification for companies that would import opium for medicine. However, some members of the board did not want to stop the trade of opium as they made money from it. So, how did then the League contribute to peace in the 1920s? So the first one is the success that we see in the Ireland Islands, where Sweden and Finland were disputing between themselves about the Ireland Islands. They've been part of Finland historically, but most of the population wanted to belong to Sweden. The governments of both Sweden and Finland asked the League to make a judgment, and the League said that the island should remain part of Finland, but that no military personnel or arms could be based there, and both countries agreed with the decision. Upper Silesia could be seen as both a success and a failure. In November 1921, the League resolved a dispute between Germany and Poland about the ownership of Upper Silesia. Okay, and they held a vote, a plebiscite, whether they wanted to remain part of Germany or be part of Poland. And Germany won 60% of the vote, but Poland claimed that many of the people who'd voted for Germany didn't actually live in Upper Silesia. They claimed it was fixed. So what the League did was it split Upper Silesia into areas according to how they'd voted. Now, Germany complained that Poland got most of the industrial area, and Poland complained that they had around half the population but only 1/3 of the land. Both countries did accept the League's decision, and that could be seen as a success. We see failure in Corfu. So in 1923, an Italian general was in Greece deciding on the new border between Greece and Albania. Him and his team were murdered, and Italy's dictator Benito Mussolini sent troops then to occupy Corfu. He originally demanded compensation and for the murderers to be executed, but Greece didn't know who the murderers were, so they couldn't go through with that, hence then the invasion. The League ordered Mussolini to leave. They condemned him, but instead Mussolini goes to the Conference of Ambassadors, a group of powerful nations, so people like the British, the French, and basically persuaded them to undermine the League of Nations. And in the end, Greece were forced to apologise, and they had to pay compensation. And so this shows that Mussolini was able to show that the League could not enforce justice when one country invaded was larger and stronger. And the League could be bullied or ignored by stronger countries. We see failure in Vilna in 1920-21. And Vilna was the capital of Lithuania, which was a new country that came out as a result of the treaties at the end of World War One. And there were many Polish people living in Vilna. Now, the Polish army invaded, and Lithuania asked the League for help, but the League did nothing, as Poland was a strong ally against Germany. Okay, and it was more because France did not want to act out against the Polish, okay, and Britain wouldn't send troops to support another country. So that's how then the Polish were able to get away with this breach. And then we can see failures and successes again in Bulgaria. Now, in Greece and Bulgaria fired at each other, and a Greek soldier was killed. Greece then invaded Bulgaria in retaliation. The Bulgarians sought assistance from the League, which ordered both armies to stop fighting. The League ruled that the Greeks should withdraw and pay compensation, but Greece was quite upset by it, as it seemed hypocritical after the League had allowed Mussolini to get away with similar actions in Corfu.